profs can be very intimidating, and something that helps a lot is being super concise in your email, especially in the subject line, because profs are busy people. They receive so many emails every single day, and being concise in your subject line and in the email makes it easier for them to respond.
Telling your professors, especially for the first time, it's really important to be polite and nice, and this just sets a nice foundation for you guys for your rest of your conversation, and also just tells your professor that you're genuinely interested in what you're talking about.
So it's important when you're first reaching out to a prof that you're maintaining a professional tone, using appropriate language such as hello or dear, doctor or professor, and then if they respond to your email in a less formal tone, then you can be a bit more casual.
So I cannot stress how important it is to check your spelling and grammar before you email a professor. It makes your email look so much cleaner, and it's a much more professional way of communicating. You can always check it through Grammarly or sites like that if you are unsure.
A tip that I have for you guys is always be true to yourself and make sure that you show you are passionate about what you're learning and about what you're focusing on. This is because a lot of people, and especially professors, really appreciate the initiative.
So you want to make sure that you choose a very clear email subject line because it's the first thing that profs read, and you want to make it as descriptive as possible.
Another thing a lot of profs or TAs like is that you include the course code for your course directly in the subject line.
Your introduction line to your email should always be very formal, such as hello doctor or professor, or dear doctor or professor. You should never use a word like hey because it would come across as unprofessional and immature.
Another piece of advice is to be as clear as you could possibly be in the body of your email. This means telling your prof or your TA exactly what you want them to do.
When you're emailing a professor, it's really important that you introduce yourself both with your full name and your student number. It's great to do this at the beginning of your email by saying, "Hi, my name is," and it's also great to sign off with your full name and again your student number.
Make sure to include the lab, lecture, or tutorial section that you're part of in the first 1 or 2 sentences so that the prof or TA can best help you and know the context of your question.
Make sure you include any necessary personal information, so your student number, your MAC ID, your first and last name, etc. Just so the professor or TA knows exactly who you are and can better help you with your problem.
When you're emailing a professor with a question or clarification about something that was said in lecture, be sure to refer to a specific slide or spot in the notes where that content comes up so that they have some context to refer to.
Helpful tip when emailing your professors is to stick to either 2 or 3 questions max so you don't overwhelm them, and so they actually do answer your questions thoroughly, because sometimes if you put too many questions they'll skip them anyway, so you might as well save yourself the hassle and only stick to 2 or 3 from the beginning.
It's always polite to thank your instructor for their time at the end of your email. Saying something as simple as "thank you very much for your help" will let them know that you appreciated their response.
When signing for email, sign off something formally, such as sincerely, best regards, or respectfully, to show that you respect the prof and the job that they do.
When emailing a professor, always use your MAC email. If you don't use your MAC email, they might not get it and you might not get a response.
It's very important that you check the course outline before sending your professor an email, because if they've already answered the question in the course outline, they may not respond to your message.
Through my years at MAC, I've noticed that some profs are a little bit more pickier than other profs. So one other piece of advice that I would give is that if there was any specific formatting that your prof wants you to follow, is for you to follow that. Typically, a prof will put that in their course outline for you to follow.
Make sure you email profs in advance because they can take a couple days to respond.
Now, if you use your MAC email and you don't get a response, don't be afraid to follow up. Professors are usually really nice, and they get busy too. They're humans as well, so don't be afraid.
Even though it can seem intimidating at first, reach out to your profs or TAs about any questions you have about this course content. They're the best resource to have since they're the ones that are going to be marking you, and they like it when students reach out because it shows that you've invested in yourself and you want to do well.
Emailing a professor can feel really intimidating, especially at the beginning, but just try to remember that professors are friendly people who actually really love interacting with students.
Okay, so this template is if you require some clarification in the course outline. So course outlines are also called syllabuses, and they provide important information in the course, such as the times and dates of midterms, assignments, quizzes, labs, tutorials, and of course your professor's expectations for the class and for your communication with them. So professors often go through the course outline on the first day just to follow up with like what dates, like what materials you'll need for the class, if the textbook's mandatory, if you need an iClicker, all that sort of stuff. Sometimes though there are instances where the information could be missing or misleading. Perhaps there's a conflict of dates. Before you ask clarification on the course outline, it's really important that you read it twice so that you haven't missed anything, because professors get very annoyed if they've laid out all this information for you and you just skim it and then they've already answered your question that you're emailing about. So a good subject title for your email is course, the name of your course, so like Math 1A03, and then course outline clarification. So again, you want to start off with a very formal greeting, such as hello, doctor or professor, and then their last name. Introduce yourself first, so you say my name is, then your first name and last name, and I'm taking the name of your course this semester. So I'm emailing to ask about the course outline. That just introduces yourself and very specifically outlines what you're looking for in this email. It's very direct, and professors like direct, concise communication. So then you want to describe what your concern is specifically relating to the course outline. So here in this email, the issue example is, I noticed a possible mix-up with the midterm dates as both do not fall on a Tuesday, contrary to the course outline. So perhaps they said Tuesday the 26th, but Tuesday was actually the 25th. So you do want to clarify this just so you don't miss anything important. So if you could be so kind as to clarify the part of the outline through email or in our next class, I would appreciate it. That way you give them the opportunity to address the class as a whole. They may also post this on the course webpage, but here you've given them the option of what they want to do, and you've also identified the issue in a very respectful way. You always want to end with thank you for your time so that they know that you appreciate the extra work you're asking them to do, and then you want to end with a formal salutation such as sincerely or regards, and then your name and student number.
Hey everyone, so I'm going to be discussing the email template for technical difficulties, especially with our upcoming online semester. It's very important that we are able to address any technical difficulties we have in a concise and correct manner. So you begin this template by having the subject line, which includes the course code along with the tutorial section if applicable, and maybe the issue that you're facing. So if it's iClicker registration, you put iClicker registration. And then the best way to start off is hello, professor, doctor, or whatever they're comfortable with being addressed as. Make sure you follow this template to keep it formal. And then you begin by introducing yourself with your first and last name. And then you say, I'm enrolled in your course name and section. For example, Math 1A03 Tutorial 4 or Chem 1A3 Lab Section 16. Then you add your iClicker number. If it's related to iClicker issues, you put that in next, just so they have all the information they need right away to figure out who they're dealing with in this issue and how they can possibly help. Then you express how I had technical difficulties when I was trying to complete blank test, assignment, quiz, etc. The issue I faced was, and here's where you explain the issue. So whether it was a white screen during the quiz or no iClicker options showing, you talk about the issue a bit to get them aware about what issue is being caused here. And I have attached an image below for proof for technical difficulty. This is also very important because you want to show that you actually face this issue if possible, so that they have all of the resources they need to see what this problem is actually causing. Students, are there any next steps I can take to resolve this issue? Moreover, is there any way that I could be granted another opportunity to complete the assigned task and demonstrate my knowledge to you? Two very important lines here, because you're demonstrating that, say this was worth a lot of credit for your mark, you're demonstrating that you acknowledge the importance of the assignment and the task and would like to be able to complete it anyways. And this will allow the professor to see that you care about the actual assignment, which is important because it'll help set up future occasions in when you can complete the assignment, rather than that being a separate email conversation, you can address that here in the same email. I apologize for any inconveniences this may cause. And then you say thank you for your understanding, regards, with your name first and last, and your student number again, just so they have all the information they need available. Thanks, guys.
Hello everyone, this is an email template for emailing professors asking for extra help appointments. First, with your email subject line, you want to make sure that it is the course code. A lot of professors will look at this first when deciding if they want to respond or even open your email, because they are very busy. Then onto the actual email, you want to start off with hello, doctor or professor, and insert your professor's name. My name is, insert your first and last name, and I am currently a student in, and insert the course code. Example, Math 1A03, Chem 1AA3, etc. I have been thoroughly enjoying the course material and am looking forward to diving deeper into the content. However, I am struggling to understand, and this is where you will insert whichever concept you're having some struggles with or want clarification on. I am wondering if I am able to book an appointment time with you to review this concept and ask some specific questions. To end your email, you'll end with best, all the best, sincerely, and then your name, your level and program, that's optional, but you should include your student number. It's important to note that a lot of first year courses have designated help centers and TAs that can help with questions at those centers. But if you have been to the centers and are still a little bit confused about a concept, it's good to note this in your email to the professor, saying something like, I've previously talked with a TA to clear up confusion, but I'm still left with a few unanswered questions. And then the professor knows that you've gone out of your way to get some help, but are still having a few questions, and they will be more inclined to help you out.
If you're nervous about asking a professor about content questions, your TAs are a fantastic resource who would be happy to clarify anything for you. So you should consider going to your TA before going to see your prof. If you're seeking clarification about something that was said in lecture, it's really good to pinpoint the slide number or a specific quote from your lecture notes just to provide some context.
This video pertains to asking for deadline extensions when it comes to assignments that you might have. So first thing you want to note is the course syllabus or the outline will often include a late submission policy, which may indicate a grade penalty for each day that the assignment is late, or a final date for which the assignment will be accepted for grading. So make sure you check this and at least you're familiar with the course's late submission policy, if there is one, prior to emailing the professor, because sometimes your question can be answered in the course outline. If a deadline extension cannot be negotiated and your assignment meets the requirements, you may consider submitting a McMaster Student Absent Form, also known as MSAF. There is a video on MSAFing as well, so you can always reference that, or you can always go on www.mcmaster.ca/MSAF for more information. So in the email itself, you want to start with your subject line. So you want to make sure that your subject line includes the course code. That's what I like to do, just so that the professor, if they're teaching multiple classes, knows which class this pertains to. And then I usually like to say deadline extension. So they're like, deadline extension for this class. Okay. Make sure you're also emailing from your McMaster account, that you're not emailing from any personal account. And also if you need to CC any TAs or any other person involved in the situation, like your group members, if it's a group assignment, make sure you do that as well. So when it comes to the email itself, you can start with the greeting. Usually I like Dr. or Professor. So dear Dr. Professor blank, my name is, so you put your first and last name, and I'm currently enrolled in your whichever class it is this semester, so you'd put the course code here. I'm writing to you to request a deadline extension for the assignment name. So that's another thing you want to put in there, the assignment name, so whatever it might be. Then you want to say, I'm aware of the current existing deadline for this assignment, and then you want to put the deadline date, so whatever date that may be, just so that the professor knows you know when it is due, and also so that they're reminded in case they have multiple students and courses to deal with. And I'm concerned about my ability to meet it. Here you would put a sentence or two about why you can't meet this deadline, whether it's illness related, conflict related, whatever it may be. And then you would say, I would like to request a deadline extension of however many days, as I believe this would allow me to adequately complete the assignment given my circumstances. Please let me know if this is possible. So the reason you want to put in the number of days in the original email is so that if they say yes to the deadline extension, they can cut down on the number of emails they're sending. Basically, you want to put as much information as you can in the first email so that you don't have to worry about corresponding with your professor back and forth, because that just creates more time for them, or they'll need more time to do that, and you want to avoid that as much as possible. So you say, thank you in advance for your consideration. Sincerely, you put your name and your student number. So those are some things you want to have. If we can go over them, your greeting, first and last name, course code, the deadline date, why you can't meet this deadline, and the number of days you want it extended, your name and your student number. These are all things that you want to include in your email, ensuring that you're emailing from your student email. And that's all.
So this email template here is just giving a little bit of information on how to file a McMaster student absence form, also known as an MSAF. So there are two components when you file an MSAF. The first would be that you have to request it through Mosaic Student Center under the academic toolbar. Then you need to follow up with your professor who is expecting the work from you or the completion of a midterm during the 3-day window that this form provides relief from. So in the email, you don't have to specify the reason why you have filed an MSAF. You just have to indicate that you did and give some information on what you'll be missing and when it will be completed. So a really good email line for the subject is MSAF request for, and then you insert the 3-day time window you're looking for. A lot of times this form will allow you to move the weight of a midterm or test onto the final exam, but it could also grant you a late write period or an extension on any assignment. So you always want to start off with a formal greeting. So a good start to your email would be something like, good afternoon, professor, and then insert the professor's last name. And then you want to introduce yourself. So saying, my name is your first and last name, and then your student number, and I'm currently enrolled in your course code and lecture section this semester. That just lets them know who you are. You may want to include your lab section number if you will be missing a lab, or your tutorial section number if you were missing a presentation that would be done in tutorial. I'm writing to inform you that I have submitted an MSAF request for, and then you insert your time period. As I'm concerned, I will be unable to fulfill assignment deadlines due to personal reasons. Again, you don't have to specify what your reasons are, you just have to here indicate the time period you're looking for so that they can better accommodate you. As this conflicts with the assignment name or midterm, I was wondering if there's an alternative deadline. So that just shows your interest really in completing the work nonetheless. You could also say if it's a midterm that you're missing, an alternate writing time or an alternative grade breakdown. As I mentioned before, the grade breakdown, if your midterm's worth 10% or something, you could perhaps shift this weight to the exam. That's at the discretion of the professor, but it's always good to ask what options are available. And then you say, I apologize for any inconvenience this may cause. If the professor has to reschedule an assessment or delay the marking time for it, that's always an inconvenience for them. So you want to recognize that this is creating additional work for them just so that they understand that you're grateful for it. And then you follow that up with thank you for your time and consideration. You end it with a nice greeting like sincerely, and then you always end with your name and student number. They will need your student number to process this request.
Make sure to email your TA if you're handing in an assignment late, even after getting a timestamp from another faculty member. This will ensure that they know to look for your assignment.
If you are registered with Student Accessibility Services for accommodations with tests or assignments, you're going to want to send an email to your instructor every time you wish to use these, unless you already have an announcement or an email with specific instructions you should follow. You should begin your message with a greeting. Something formal and polite like, hello, professor, or good afternoon, doctor, and then the name of your instructor usually works very well. In the first line of your email, you're going to want to introduce your full name, so your first name and your last name, as well as the specific course you are taking with your instructor. Some people also like to indicate their student number here as well. You should say something like, my name is, and then your name, and I am enrolled in your course this semester. I'm registered with Student Accessibility Services for accommodations with tests and assignments, and I was hoping I would be able to use these for the name of your test, or assignment, and then the assignment due date or the test date. Here you're going to want to be as specific as possible using test names or assignment names like midterm 1 or formal lab report and the specific date you planned on submitting the assessment. This way your professor knows exactly what you're talking about and can figure out the best way to help you. My accommodation allows me, and here you're going to outline the specifics of your accommodation. For example, if you get 15 extra minutes of test time for every hour of a test, you should indicate that here. Even though your instructor might already have access to this information when you registered with SAS, having it in the email makes it easier to retrieve, and it may mean they can answer your message more quickly. It's also more convenient for them, which is a nice thing to do. And then you should say something like, how could I access this for this particular assessment? Thank you very much. And then you should indicate your full name again, so your first name and your last name, as well as your student number. Your professor may respond to you with specific instructions you should follow for the assessment, or they might ask you more questions about the accommodations you need so they can help you be successful. You should be prepared to answer a couple little details about maybe certain accommodations you need or the way you'd like these presented.
So this is an email for a grade changes and errors template. So sometimes you may not understand why your test was graded a certain way or why you lost points for some specific things. You may think your assignment answer or test answer is very similar to the solution, so you may seek clarification on this. Other times they give you a test back, you see your score, but the score posted on the course homepage is a little bit different, so you may just want to confirm this. So a good subject line, you want to insert your course code in there, and then you want to say request for a grade change. So you always want to start with a formal greeting such as hello, then you want to say doctor or professor and their last name, or alternatively, if you're emailing a TA, you want to address them by the name that they've given you in tutorial or lab. Then you need to introduce yourself. So my name is your first name and last name, and I am a student in, and then the name of the course, and potentially the lecture section or lab section or tutorial section, depending on what type of grade you're inquiring about. So then the second part of this email template is split into two things. So one is for a grade error. You could say something like, I noticed an error for whatever your test or assignment name is. Then you want to explain it. So for example, my grade on the paper that you sent me was a 25 out of 25, but when I look at the website, it says it's a 23 out of 25. I was wondering if I could get this fixed. You may want to include a photo or a screenshot of the grade that you think you should have or that was given to you before, just so they have the proof of this, or the professor or TA may ask you for this themselves. Alternatively, for a grade change, you could say something along the lines of, I was reviewing my test or assignment, and I was wondering if you could look it over with me because, and then insert your reasoning for wanting the grade change. It's very important in this email that you don't sound demanding of a higher mark, so potentially you could say something like, I believe that my solution had certain elements that you were looking for. Would you be able to explain to me how points were assigned for this question? Or something along those lines. Then when you finish off, you always want to thank the professor or TA for their time. So here we have thank you, and then you sign off with your full name and your student number. When asking about a grade change or an error in grading, it's really important that you don't email out of panic or frustration. Give it a day to calm yourself down and then send your message.
If you think a mistake was made with the way something was graded, it can often be helpful to go to a professor and ask them to explain to you how something was assessed. This way, you'll know where marks were taken off, and if an error was made, the professor will notice it and have the opportunity to correct it.
Alright, so this is just a template for if you're inquiring about research positions with a specific faculty member. Sometimes they'll have a course available in your specific program. So for example, Biology 3IR3 is an independent research project course. So there you would get to work with a prof for a semester or throughout the entire year. So for a lot of these courses, you need to email the professor first to get approval, and you'll also need to email them if you're interested in a summer position or a thesis position or even a paid summer internship such as under an NSERC undergraduate student research award. So you always want to start off with a formal greeting. So this could be hello, doctor or professor, and then their last name. And then you want to introduce yourself. So my name is your name. I am your year student in whatever program you're in. This just gives the professor an idea of who they're working with and what your knowledge may be. You could say something like, I'm writing to inquire about a potential position in your lab as part of the, and then you would insert what type of position you're looking for. So for example, if you're interested in fulfilling a requirement for your independent research project course, you could include the course code. If you're interested in being a thesis student, you'd specify that. If you're interested in a position, you'd specify whether you were looking as part of a grant or if you were looking to volunteer. Then you want to express your interest in working with them specifically. So for example, saying something like, I read your paper entitled, and then the name of the paper, and these are the elements that I'm interested in with regards to your publication. That's a really good way of showing your interest. If you haven't read a paper or you want to show your interest without sounding overzealous, one thing you could say is something like, I'm interested in your discipline and this is why I'm interested in your discipline. You don't have to be an expert about any of these things, you just want to show why you're interested. Then you could say something along the lines of, if you have any available opportunities, I would be happy to meet with you to discuss my involvement in your lab. It's always better to request an in-person meeting because it's very hard to convey your enthusiasm and get all your questions answered in an email correspondence. It's just much more convenient in person or via video chat if you are able. Then you say, I've attached my CV and transcript. Please feel free to contact me with any questions or concerns. It's really good to include these documents because a lot of these courses or positions require a certain grade point average. So here you're just showing that you're qualified and you're what they're looking for. And finally, you want to thank them for their time. So here we have, thank you for your time and consideration. Best regards, your name and student number. And the last thing you want to do before you sign off is to remember to attach your CV and transcript. It's really embarrassing if you don't. Good luck, and I hope you get the research position.
If you're looking to get involved with a professor's research, it's beneficial to state what kind of position you're looking for in your initial email, whether that's an NSERC summer position, thesis student, or just volunteering.
When emailing profs, when wanting to do research with them or wanting to work with them, it's important to express your passion and be confident in your skills, but at the same time not to be too cocky so they want to actually work with you.
If you're looking to become a research assistant, it's good to look into the professor's research before you email them. You don't have to be an expert, but they do appreciate when you explain why you want to work with them and what about their research interests you the most.
If you're finding it difficult to get your point across or to understand what the professor or TA's point is through email, feel free to book an in-person appointment where you can sit down and chat with them one-on-one.
When emailing about research positions, it's sadly not uncommon to not get a response, so it's really important that you don't get discouraged by non-replies or rejections and that you continue emailing with a positive attitude.
So the following template is designed for a student who is unable to enroll in their required courses for their program. So this can be either because it was full, the seats are blocked off, or it just doesn't work with their schedule. But people do email academic advisors outside of this reason alone. So if I were to write an email to the academic advisor, I would first start with the subject line, of course, and you want to insert your program name. So in my case, it would be Life Sciences and then course enrollment issues. This way they know which specific program you're in case they need to connect you to the academic advisor for your particular program rather than just the Faculty of Science in general. And next, so you always have to start with a greeting. In this case, I normally use good morning, good afternoon, Dr. or Professor blank. So my name is Sonia Vij. I am a third year in the Honors Life Sciences program. I am required to enroll in blank course. However, because of scheduling issues, I am unable to because of this reason. And the reason is usually displayed on Mosaic, or if it's your own scheduling purposes, then you also include that. And then lastly, you want to end off with, are there any next steps that I can take? Thank you, your name, and then your student number. So your student number is very important because this is the easiest way that they can identify you in the system so they can get back to you quicker. and you want to include certain reasons or specific reasons in this scenario just so they know what they're working with and can get you the help that you need. As well, you want to be as specific as possible for your course codes and your program names, just for organizational purposes, because they do get many emails a day. So this way you'll probably get a reply sooner rather than later. And lastly, you want to end off with, are there any next steps that I can take, rather than, is there any way you can get me into this course, because this kind of explains to them that you're not complaining about this situation. It's just you're generally concerned about it and you want to do anything possible to kind of resolve this issue for yourself. And this is just kind of a polite way to also end off. So yeah.
Hello, so this is a general email template that you could use when asking student finance related questions. So this could be questions regarding tuition, opting out of insurance, OSAP, or any other student finances. And this email should be sent to student services at student.services@mcmaster.ca. And so to start off, your email subject line should include the category of your finance related query. For example, you could write tuition payment issues if that was a problem that you needed help with. It would also help to put your full name in the subject line, because this would help student services find your email more easily. And now doing all this just introduces the problem to them before even opening the email, and it ensures that it's an issue that they could help you solve. And it also increases the likelihood of them replying to you more quickly. Now, for the body of the email, make sure you start off by introducing yourself so that student services know who you are. You could say, my name is, then insert your name, student number, then type in your student number, and I'm currently a, insert your year, student here at McMaster University. Then you want to briefly introduce the issue that you're having by saying, I've been experiencing issues with, then type in your financial issues, such as completing my tuition payments or any of the other issues that I've mentioned before. After this, you can explain the issue with more details and just more in depth. For example, if you're having problems with paying your tuition online and an error message pops up, you can specify what error it was and the steps that you made in this email. And this is just important for identifying the issue and coming up with a potential solution to this. And you could start this off by saying specifically, then proceed to explain any error messages or specific difficulties that you're experiencing. Now, end the email off by asking them for a solution. You could say, I was wondering how I would go about resolving this issue. Finally, thank them for their time and consideration and sign off with your name and student number. And that's about it. So I hope this helps you solve any finance related issues that you may be having.